She went to 2 rehabs. The last one, I put her in against her will, and she hated me for it. I said, no, this really is. I got your letter today, and we're thinking about coming to see you tonight in the contest. Are you happy with what you're doing?
Carol Burnett's life and career are the kind of story that only seems possible in hindsight, a journey from poverty and pain to a place where she would become one of the most beloved figures in television history. Yet behind the laughter, there were battles few ever saw, including moments of confrontation, deep personal loss, and years-long estrangements. She was born on April 26, 1933, in a crumbling San Antonio hospital so poor that her birth certificate didn't even list an address. Her parents were already deep in alcoholism by the time she was born, and by age 4, both were drinking daily. Her mother's temper could turn violent without warning, and Carol would often hide under beds to escape the shouting neighbors. Aware of the neglect, brought food to keep the family fed. She would later describe her early years not as a childhood, but as survival. Her father walked out when she was 2, and by the time she was 6, her parents' divorce was finalized, with the court citing drunkenness and neglect. Sitting through those hearings, she felt invisible, just another child caught in adult battles she couldn't control. After the split, Carol and her half-sister Chrissy went to live with their grandmother in a tiny, windowless room in a rundown Hollywood boarding house. Rent was $9 a week, and the bathtub was down the hall, shared with other tenants. Mice ran freely across the floor at night. They survived on her grandmother's $30 monthly Social Security check. Carol made toys from broken furniture and read discarded books. For entertainment, she would attend free radio show tapings just to feel some joy. At 8 years old, she invented an imaginary twin sister named Corinne, blonde, pretty, with perfect dimples. Carol would run out the front door, change clothes behind the building, and return as Corinne, keeping the act going for nearly 2 years. She even invited Corinne to a birthday party once. A concerned neighbor wrote to her grandmother, suggesting she might need help, but for Carol, it was simply her first taste of improvisation and performance. Soon, she was practicing her Tarzan yell on the rooftop, imitating the jungle call from old movies, until neighbors and sometimes police came running. What began as a strange form of play became a signature part of her act that she could later deliver on command. Her grandmother had her own survival tactics, including quietly stealing toilet paper from movie theater bathrooms because they couldn't afford to buy their own. Movies weren't just escape, they were an education. For a dime, Carol could watch double features, studying actors' timing, scene pacing, and audience reactions. Decades later, those early lessons would inspire some of her show's most famous parodies, including her now legendary Went with the Wine sketch. Music also brought rare moments of peace. Her grandmother played piano, her mother strummed the ukulele, and they would sing together at the kitchen table. On those nights, their poverty seemed to fade away. Carol told her mother she wanted to be an actress, but the response was crushing. "You can always write, no matter what you look like." That sting never left her, but instead of breaking her, it fueled her drive to prove that talent mattered more than beauty. By 1954, Carol was a junior at UCLA, still unsure of her future. During her final theater exam, her professor replaced the test with a skit performance for other faculty members. Carol improvised a comedy bit, and the laughter she heard was genuine, not polite. Among the audience was a wealthy shipbuilder who, after the show, approached her not to scold her for quietly slipping cookies into her purse for her grandmother, but to offer her and her friend Don Soroyan $1,000 each to move to New York and chase their dreams. The only conditions were that they repay the money in 5 years, never reveal his name, and someday help other young artists the same way. Carol kept her promise, repaid him on the exact due date in 1959, and went on to quietly fund scholarships and help struggling performers. With the money, she and Don dropped out of UCLA and moved to New York, surviving on cheap meals and shared rent while auditioning relentlessly. Her big break came in 1959, when she landed the role of Princess Winifred in Once Upon a Mattress, a part that brought her a Tony nomination and put her on the map. That same year, she repaid her mystery benefactor and never revealed his identity. In 1962, she joined The Gary Moore Show, where she developed her iconic charwoman character and honed her comedic range. She met producer Joe Hamilton, her future husband Dan, won her first Emmy that same year. She also teamed up with Julie Andrews for the now legendary special Julie and Carol at Carnegie Hall, which pulled in over 17 million viewers and proved she could sing, act, and command a stage. Her personal life was more complicated. She married Don Saroyan in 1955, but they divorced in 1962, just as her career was taking off. Months later, she married Joe Hamilton, who had 8 children from his previous marriage. Together, they had 3 daughters, Carrie, Jody, and Erin. But Carol also suffered a miscarriage in 1965. Then came The Carol Burnett Show. CBS originally wanted her to star in a sitcom called Here's Agnes, but Carol used a clause in her contract to create the variety show she wanted. Premiering in 1967, it became a television landmark, running for 11 seasons and winning 25 primetime Emmys. The show broke barriers. No woman had hosted a primetime variety show before and introduced iconic characters like Eunice and the Charwoman. Carol's warm, unscripted Q&A sessions with the audience became a beloved tradition. Her cast, Harvey Korman, Vicki Lawrence, Tim Conway, and Lyle Waggoner, shared chemistry that turned sketches into classics, but not everything backstage was smooth. By the 7th season, Harvey Korman's behavior had soured. He openly criticized sketches and was curt with guests. Carol confronted him, leading to a heated exchange where he physically pushed her into the hallway and slammed the door. Drawing strength from imagined voices of screen legends Joan Crawford and Barbara Stanwyck, she fired him on the spot. Harvey quickly apologized and promised to behave for a week, then kept that promise for the rest of the show's run. They remained close until his death in 2008. Offstage, Carol faced even greater challenges. Her eldest daughter, Carrie, began using drugs at 13, cycling through rehabs before finally getting sober. Carrie turned her recovery into advocacy, speaking at schools and supporting others in recovery. In 1988, Carol and Carrie traveled to Moscow to help establish the first Alcoholics Anonymous chapter in the Soviet Union, taking calls from people who had never heard of AA before. Carol's marriage to Hamilton ended in 1984, strained by work pressures and the stress of Carrie's addiction. He died in 1991 at age 62 from cancer. But the deepest heartbreak came in 2000 when Carrie died at just 38 from pneumonia related to lung and brain cancer. Even in her final days, she kept working on a Broadway play she co-wrote with her mother, Hollywood Arms. Carol later said losing Carrie felt like being cut in half. During the 1980s, Carol also became estranged from her friend and co-star Vicki Lawrence. After her divorce from Hamilton, who was producing Mama's Family, Carol distanced herself from the show and those associated with him. Years passed in silence until after Hamilton's death, when the two slowly reconnected. By 2023, they were closer than ever, working together again on Apple TV's Palm Royale. Even in her 90s, Carol hasn't slowed down. In 2022, she played Marion in the final season of Better Call Saul, a pivotal role in Saul Goodman's downfall. In 2024, she returned to comedy in Palm Royale, proving she can still hold her own alongside younger stars. When asked why she continues to work, she said simply, "I want to have fun." From a childhood of poverty and neglect to a career that reshaped television, Carol Burnett's story is one of resilience, reinvention, and an unshakable belief in the power of laughter. She has faced betrayal, grief, and decades-long silences. But she's also built bridges, launched careers, and inspired millions. And as long as she's having fun, she has no plans to stop.